Amen.
Young Marines, post colors. And salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
ready, two.
Have a seat, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. If this is your first time, I know Dan did this already, but we do something every time we meet. This is actually our 87 Fish Speaker Series. Oh, one of the things, Justin, we still need some tickets for some of the veterans. So if you've not received one, keep your hand up. Justin will lead you and take it right away. So this is our 87th time meeting, and we're really excited that you're here. Hey, thank you, Young Marines, for being here tonight. That was awesome. Can you hear me okay? I think we need one now.
Yeah.
All right.
Hello, hello, check. How's that? Is that better? All right, so thank you, Young Marines, for being here tonight. You guys are always welcome. You look really fantastic in those uniforms, so thank you. Let's hear it for the Young Marines. Yeah. A lot of new faces here. We're really excited that you're here. You know, I feel a little rusty because it's been a while. Last time we were here was, when was the bowl? October? October. Because we didn't do anything in November because we had a very, very, very busy November. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's to everybody. Glad you're here. We got a few things that we want to share. You know, what happened in November was our big Christmas party with the troops, and it was, once again, absolutely phenomenal. We had 43 families, 98 kids, and I think we have a little video that we can play to show you a little snippet of what took place that night, November 21st. An amazing night, amazing night, and yeah, that was for you Chiefs fan. That was Noah Gray. About a week later, he took two families shopping at Walmart, and it was so cool. But I said I feel like I'm really rusty because it's been a while, and it really has. One of the things that I forgot to do is something that we've done for years. Okay, it's called the call out. So when I say Army, I want to hear from you. Army. Nice. Marine Corps. Outstanding. Navy. Wow, that's pretty good. Air Force. Strong. Coast Guard. Crickets. Space Force. It's going to happen one of these days. It will indeed happen. All right, let's keep going. Next slide here. So that was November, and there were some other things that went on in there. You know, Veterans Day, we were all over the city. We did a Black and Beach event. And in December 10th, we worked once again with 106.5 The Wolf, partnered with them at the Midland Theater. They had some amazing talent there. It was an incredible night. Sold a lot of swag, shook a lot of hands, met a lot of people. It was phenomenal. One of the cool things that happened, we invited our active duty military that was there to come up, and we all had caps on the stage, and it was really cool. We threw a cap up in the air. Instead of it going straight up, at a 45, it hit someone right in the bridge of the nose. Oh, it was pretty scary, but it turned out okay. But it was a great night. And then another thing that we're going to do, but we're also at St. Joe, and we fed our airmen out there some food and brought some goodies and some gift cards. Did the same thing at Whiteman Air Force Base. We did the same thing as well in December. And one of the things we have coming up, for those of you that are familiar with that wonderful sound of those blades over Kansas City, the 158th has been deactivated, and the Bravo and Delta Company, they're going to be holding their last dining out event later this month. And F.I.S.H, because of you guys, because of your tremendous support, we're going to be able to provide the meal for them. So they're not going to have to pitch in and try and get money from this and this place, that place. F.I.S.H is taking care of that because of you guys and your generosity. So thank you for that. Another thing that I'd like for you to put on your calendar, it's a ways away. I mean, we got our F.I.S.H combat golf tournament before this, but this is a big deal. Ag City out in Harrisonville. It's going to be a concert. There's going to be tractor pulling, all kinds of awesome stuff. So there's a QR code there. You probably can't scan it from up here, but we have some over at our fish table with my lovely wife, Leslie, over there. Thank you for coming tonight, taking off work early to help out. So that's going to be a big deal. Next month, we have Rear Admiral Scott Jerbick that's going to be our speaker. Really excited to have him share his story with us. He's attended many times, and so excited about that. And let's see here. All right, if you've not attended a F.I.S.H speaker series or don't know that much about F.I.S.H, F.I.S.H started out feeding our troops, food industry serving heroes, and it's evolved from there. It's not just food that we've been able to provide for our troops and our military families and such. It's been service dogs, mobility chairs, track chairs, all kinds of things. I mean, you saw in that Christmas video, a double amputee Vietnam veteran. Not only did we give him a track chair that night, we ended up later giving him a hospital bed, a brand new hospital bed that he now has, and also an electric Hoyer. His wife for 39 years had been using a manual Hoyer, and for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a device that lifts up the person out of bed and such. I'll tell you, when I spoke with that woman on the phone, I said, ma'am, you probably know who Arnold Schwarzenegger is. Oh, yeah, the actor, the bodybuilder guy? I can't wait to shake your hand because you must have an incredible, bicep. And she just laughed because she knew where I was going with that. But now, it's not any more of this. It's just a touch of a button, and she can lift up her husband and move him around. So F.I.S.H, we're 100% all volunteer. We're always out in the community trying to go fishing. That's the process that we use to find veterans to serve. Most veterans, as you guys know, will never ask for help. So that's why we ask you guys to be our eyes and ears, our hands and feet to help us find these men and women that will never ask for help, but a little hand up would do all the, would certainly help them out a lot. So, if you know someone, reach out to us. We currently have 2 service dogs that are ready for people. So we're always looking for a candidate for those service dogs. So keep that in mind too. All righty. All right. So tonight's speaker series, it's being live streamed, so please watch your language. Where is he? I'm not even going to point him out. Okay. And be courteous on the mic too when during the Q&A. So this evening, we are very fortunate to have Bud share his story. So let me tell you a little bit about Bud. All right. I probably need my reading glasses. Bud Prufrock Mackey was born in Columbus, Ohio, and graduated from Princeton University in 1961. After completing Naval Officer Candidate School in Newport, Rhode Island, he served on the West Coast destroyer home ported in San Diego, California. From May till November 1963, his ship, the USS
Chevalier DDS 805 was deployed to the Western Pacific and the Gulf of Tonkin. Bud is a resident of Kansas City and the author of Princess of the Mockingbird. I really do need my glasses. After graduating from Princeton University and the Naval Officers Candidate School, Bud also found himself aboard the USS Chevalier and went on to write the journal and highlights of his logbooks and turned that into a book called The Honorable Way. So, ladies and gentlemen, where is Bud? Bud, please join us on the stage here behind the podium. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Must be me. Okay. Is my equipment working all right? Can you hear me? I'm honored to be with you all. Let's see if we got our signals here straight. Paul tells me that most of you are veterans, I think. And I think I have at least one destroyer sailor here anyway. One over there. I think I heard the Marines. I think I heard the Army. I think we're pretty well all represented. And as far as the Marines are concerned, we're always happy to give you a ride. That's okay. Well, and happy 250th anniversary to everybody. Paul mentioned I might bring some artifacts. Here I am. There's some over on the table there. But this kind of all started out with the book The Honorable Way, which I wrote. This was not a commercial venture. I wrote it so my family would have some record of what I'd done and a way of kind of explaining to them who I was. I know there are a lot of stories in this room. There usually are, and it's really a good thing to write those down for your family. And it's really been, I've understood, a good therapy for people who have PTSD or have something they need to work their way through. In 2023, I published The Honorable Way, and what it tells, it's not a war story in the sense of, you know, what I did or whatever, but it really tracks my journey on this destroyer in 1963 from San Diego to, we left San Diego and we spent a little time in Pearl Harbor when those ships were still weeping oil from Pearl Harbor. When we got there, we went from Pearl to Midway we went to Tokyo Bay. Ultimately, we did the Philippines. We did Hong Kong. Did Hong Kong BCC when it was still a British Crown colony, which was kind of interesting in those days. Tonight, I would really like to talk not so much about the book, but what it was like to spend 3 years of your life living on a destroyer on the Pacific Ocean. I have some slides and some film that was taken by a friend of mine back on. They put it on Super 8. It got transferred to CDs, and ultimately we got it. We could view it online here. But so this goes back to the 1963 and what was going on at that time. Also, my book quotes T.S. Eliot, who said, "We had the experience but missed the meaning." And it so often happens that we're so busy living the experience that we don't really reflect on it a little bit. But to close, I'd like to spend a little time reflecting on the Vietnam conflict in the Gulf of Tonkin. Following my graduation from Princeton in '61, I had no notion what I wanted to do. So I enlisted in the United States Naval Reserve, and they sent me to Officer Candidate School. I began military life in boondockers and bell-bottom trousers and Dixie cup. Let's see if we can get going with this. That way? Okay, we'll do that. It works. I received my commission as an officer, gentleman, and ensign on 17 November 1961. That's about 64 years ago, so that'll give you an idea of the Navy in those days. The commission was signed by John Connolly, who was then SecNav, on behalf of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. A little 2 years after I was commissioned, JFK would be dead, Connolly would be severely wounded, and I would be a Vietnam veteran. All surprises. Okay, so 63. Where were you in 1963? Do you know where you were? Do you remember? Well, 1963, we were surfing USA with the Beach Boys. We were enjoying the days of wine and roses with Mancini, and we were blowing in the wind with Dylan. In the movies, it was a mad, 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 mad world. The Cuban Missile Crisis was but a few months behind us. People were building bomb shelters. The Berlin Wall was a year old, and the Cold War was at its peak. In 1963, I was 24 years innocent, a lieutenant junior grade gunnery officer on the USS Chevalier DD-805, and headed for Westpac. Now, there's some of you probably don't know what is a destroyer, and one of my favorite definitions was written by John Steinbeck. He said, a destroyer is a lovely ship, probably the nicest fighting ship of all. A destroyer is all boat, in the beautiful clean lines of her, in her speed and roughness, in her curious gallantry. Wherever there is a mess, the destroyers run first. Most of all, the men who work them are seamen. In rough weather, they are rough, honestly and violently rough. Destroyers are dangerous. The Chevy, as we call her, the Chevalier, was a fighting ship. She took her name after Godfrey de Chevalier, who was the first man to land a plane on an aircraft carrier. And that is where we got our tradition. It was my home for 3 years. I had a floating address of DD-805, and it contained all my worldly possessions. The Pacific Ocean was my home. Let's go back here a little bit. See if we can, oh, wrong way. No, I want to go back. Okay. Here we go. Whoops. Back. There it is. That's the Chevalier. She was a late World War II destroyer. Had gone through what they called FRAM, which was a fleet rehabilitation program to update her a little bit. And she was about as long as a football field. She's about as broad as the end zone is deep on her beam. She could do about 32 knots if she was moving smoothly. For 25% of the day or night when we were underway, my job was driving the ship from the bridge. You don't drive the destroyer like a car, you drive it with a team, and my control was verbal. To change course, I'd order the helmsman to find the new, come to the new course, and if I wanted to change the speed, we'd pass the word down to the bowels of the ship, you know where that is, and they would put on some more steam. So that was, I would take advice from the guys in Combat Information Center about course changes, but the ultimate responsibility was mine. I had a ship and the lives of 240 men for which I was responsible. One of the first things you learn about driving a destroyer is it doesn't have brakes. It displaces, this one empty displaced about 2,250 tons of seawater empty, and so they don't stop real quick. When at general quarters, my job was to fire the guns. The main battery director is up toward the mast. You can maybe see a radar screen up there, but that was the point from which the guns were fired. Our primary mission as a destroyer was to protect the the aircraft carriers from enemy submarines and air attacks. A screen of destroyers would either precede or circle the carrier to protect them. We were known as the cowboys or the small boys. The destroyers, and that was what we were known as to the carrier. Destroyers were also known as tin cans because of their light armor. The light armor was about 1/4 of an inch in the hull, and they were built for speed. An enemy shell could pass right through that hull in many cases and not explode. The carriers were known as tin can openers. If a destroyer made the mistake of crossing too closely under the bow of a carrier, she could be cut in half. The USS Evans in 69 turned in front of a carrier and was cut in half in the Gulf of Tonkin. The forward part of the ship sank in about 7 minutes and took 3 minutes, and it took 74 people with them. Our home was the Pacific Ocean. Join the Navy and see the world. Well, that's kind of what you see. The world is over 70% water. The Pacific alone occupies about 32% of our globe, which is greater than the total land mass. So if you're worried about where those ice packs are going to go, there's plenty of room to spread around. If you go to New York City, the water is no deeper on the Statue of Liberty than it was back in 1958 or 9 when I was taking biology or geology, and they told me that New York could be, or Princeton could be a waterfront property. Well, it hasn't moved any since, so I wouldn't worry about that. Let me see how we can keep going here. Okay, this is some film that was taken in 1963, and these are some of my guys, and that's actually me in the middle. We're in our whites because we're entering Pearl Harbor, and we're just about to go on liberty and shore leave. The captain announced that it was called Rest and Recuperation and not Rape and Rampage, if I remember. This is the Arizona Memorial. This is brand new this year, and that was Battleship Row back there. I'm not sure exactly how this sign got into my picture, but we hadn't at that point. Now these are some shots. That's what a destroyer looks like. This is our group. Those are twin 5-inch 38 mounts, and this is the task group that's going over with us when we were going to Westpac. These are destroyers. There's some of our, there's a carrier with us, and these are some of the replenishment ships that came with us too, the oilers and the reefers and that sort of thing. So this is just what it kind of looks like traveling over to Westpac. We have some, this is kind of the view you see from the 5-inch gun mount. Those are the twin 5-inch 38s, and that's our just cutting through the water there. That's a pretty good day, frankly, on the ocean. It's not smooth all that regularly. Now this is the laundry. These are the guys who fly the flags, and that's what they call, that's a signal bridge. So here's if you can see it, they're passing a bag between two destroyers. This is how we transferred things, and probably that's either mail or movies. So you can kind of see how we got things back and forth there. This is refueling. You can see the refueling hose going across. So that's how we got our gas. That's another destroyer there waiting in line. And you can kind of see how the ocean moves around, and that's really not what anybody would call rough. But yeah, that's from the signal bridge. A little bit of the weather still. That's still on the signal bridge. Those are the signalmen keeping an eye on things. Okay. This is this is transferring a man from one ship to the other. That is the bosun's chair. And so he is, if you want to be in an interesting position, ride a bosun's chair sometime. And you better be sure that the helmsman is your friend, because all he had to do is turn that wheel just a little bit and you got dumped. So, but that's how we got people, one of the ways we got people back and forth to the various ships. Yeah, here, there more than one person got dunked in that process, I could tell you. But it's an interesting ride. That you can kind of see how the ocean moves around a little bit. This is alongside. That's an oiler next to us. But if you look, you can actually see through that rectangular thing that's on the ship. They're fielding two ships at the same time, and that's a ASROC Lancer on a destroyer on the other side that you can see through there. So yeah, that just straight through on the other side. But this is kind of what it looked like when you took on gas. They don't do that much of it anymore. It seems like about everything these days is nuclear. But that's how a ride looks out there. That's still refueling. Okay. Well, this is a sequence taken on ammunition. Now those are powder casings, and those are projectiles in the olive green there. The 5-inch 38 was a semi-fixed ammunition, and so you could vary the type of shell you were firing as well as the powder. And it was always handled manually. You see they're picking that up shell by shell, projectile by projectile, and then loading them into the magazines for future use. I have no idea where this came from. In my time on the ship, I never looked down the barrel of a 5-inch 38. This is the director, the radar screen up there. That's the point from which you fired the guns. They were put into what they called automatic and directed from there. They're practicing. These are airbursts that you're seeing, and the splash in the water is shrapnel. The Chevy didn't have a 50 caliber machine gun. They weren't really armed for attacking small craft, and so that was one of the ways they could actually do that. Marines will get a big kick out of this. These are the guys practicing shooting the ocean. They seem to be hitting it though. So I was always proud of my gunner's mates. They were. So anyhow, this is kind of what they were doing, and I really don't have any idea what they were trying to, seeing where the trigger was or something like that. But we didn't get a lot of small arms training in the Navy. Well, what we did, I was briefly that's the motor whaleboat. That's how we kind of got from the ship other places when we weren't in port. When it wasn't the motor whaleboat, it became the captain's gig. So they're actually this is actually in the Gulf of Tonkin right now, and they're, for some reason that I don't know, remember going over to check out a little island. They don't look heavily armed, so I guess it's not a priority. This is the main battery director that fires that controls the guns, and somebody is cleaning his windshield. But that was the main battery director. These are some of our finest. That's what we wore in those days, and that's the way the Navy dressed. These guys are just saying goodbye to one of our stalwarts there on the phones, and they'll be waving goodbye to us here, I think, pretty quickly. Okay, let's see. Okay, that's the loneliest man in the world. That's the commanding officer of a ship at sea, just looking over the sea. And here's a final wave from one of our good guys. Okay, this is how you drive a destroyer. That's the commanding officer in the XO. And you do it verbally. They're standing there, and probably at this point the CO is in charge. When we went to sea in 1963, we did it about the same way that you did in the 1600s. This is the executive officer shooting the stars, and the boatswain is, or the quartermaster rather, is writing down the numbers. So to figure out where we were in the Pacific Ocean in those days, we shot the stars and the sun. When you couldn't see the stars or the sun, you did something called dead reckoning, and I never really thought that was a great term, frankly, but that's how you figured out where you might be until you got something you could see again. This is how we got our mail. That's a helicopter hovering over our fantail and lowering a bag of mail. It's also how we transferred personnel from the land to ships and ship to ship in some ways. So that's always a lot of fun, sitting on the edge of that thing being lowered onto a ship. But that was how we got around there. This is a nest of destroyers. I don't know if you can see it very well. To the far left, the 900 hull is next to the Chevalier 805, and I'll give you the idea of the difference in the size of the newer destroyers as the old one. That's a nest of destroyers over from above. That's in Subic Bay, actually, and we're all lined up alongside of a tender for repairs or whatever, but that was the way that we usually ended up in port one way or the other, and you'd have to, if you were the outboard destroyer, you'd have to walk across all those ships to get wherever you wanted to go. That's our stalwart crew. We had 63. We had the midshipmen with us, and so those were my ducklings. I was in charge of the midshipmen, and the commanding officers on the right there. The XO's in the middle, and that is myself standing there on the left-hand side. These are some of the great minds of the ship. We're discussing something important. Nobody in that room is 25 years old. So, let's see here. Okay. This is Westpac. It's a little bigger position. It's basically, at the top was Japan. Off to the left, you can see Hong Kong. You get down to Vietnam. The Philippines are at the bottom there. This is not a super good one either. So this is the Gulf of Tonkin, and this is where we ended up spending some of our time. Most of it was protecting the carriers, but we ended up we went north and south. From about I don't know if you can see I don't have a pointer on this thing, but up at the top there is Hanoi up at the top, and so when you get up to the very top of this particular chart, you're in communist China. But this is a little different graphic of the Gulf of Tonkin. We were assigned, we were there for the coup when the news were thrown out, but we were also assigned something called, which I didn't, the term I didn't learn for 40 years, but it was called the DeSoto Patrol. The DeSoto Patrol began in December of '62, and it was manned by a succession of destroyers, and the assignment was to really cruise the coast of North Vietnam and into communist China, collecting electronic information and basically spying on them. This was the same thing that the Pueblo was doing when they ended up being captured, but they weren't armed, and they didn't have any sort of cover from an aircraft carrier or whatever. So this is part of what we were doing. There were 14 patrols. Ours was the 13th, and we were doing this in November of 1963. The last patrol was in the 14th in August of '64, and that was the USS Maddox of the famous Tonkin Gulf incident. By that point, we had about 16,000 military advisors in Vietnam at that point, and we were flying all sorts of other missions. That was what our final event there. Vietnam was the war that everyone wanted to forget. The era is now roughly characterized as 1955 through '75. John Paul Vann was an operative, CIA, and was also military. He wrote a book. In that book, he called Vietnam a bright, shining lie. Most books written about the conflict didn't appear for 8 to 10 years after it actually happened. We sacrificed nearly 60,000 young men and women, many of them in their teens, and we were supporting a corrupt Catholic regime ruling a brutish country. I'm honored to be designated as a Vietnam veteran, but I'm no hero. I had no idea that the Gulf was a war zone when I was there. I had no idea my ship might be attacked, and I had no idea by what or by whom. I had no idea that I was a spy. Frankly, it kind of pissed me off when I found out. The combat veterans of Vietnam remain a brotherhood. They fought an unconventional war they did not understand. They were graftees mainly, many of them. They fought to survive, and they fought for one another. No one who was in that conflict truly escaped it that I know. You guys do a lot of work with heroes, and so I think that I'd like to say that I'm blessed in my life to have had a number of heroes. Hal, my friend and golf partner, flew dive bombers in the Battle of Midway. Fred, my first cousin, fought across Europe with Patton, freed a concentration camp, and drank Hitler's champagne. Bob, my first cousin, was on a Taffy 3 carrier in the Battle of Leyte Gulf. But the men of Vietnam will always be my heroes. They paid a price no one can really measure, and they did it for one another, and they did it to survive. But all those who served are heroes in their own right. I wrote something, this was actually July the 4th, 1963, in the middle of the South China Sea. My memories are not of heroes of yore who perished with grim resolution, but rather of sailors who lived, joked, and swore through the day's everyday evolution. My heroes just jostled with everyday chores without patriotic commotion, preparing for conflict or undeclared war on the sailing man's 7-day ocean. The shadows who sweltered on far eastern seas and tossed with a typhoon unfold. The peacekeeping Navy who fought the Cold War on the nakedest edge of the world. For them I ask reflection and release a prayer for those who dared the dangerous game of peace. Thank you. I'm here for questions, and I love them. So however you want to do that.
Any questions for Bud?
It's all right. I'll hang around.
No questions?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, bud. Oh, here, Raul, here you go.
You get out in
65.
65. I was just graduated from high school. There.
You were bored anyway.
Yeah. How long did it take you to admit that you were a veteran to anybody?
Well, I didn't know I was a veteran until about 2 years after I separated from service. You know, when I say I didn't know, here I was responsible for my ship and crew when I was driving it, and I didn't know we were in a war zone. I didn't know that they had those, the fast boats and that sort of stuff. I didn't know what could attack us. And I was just doing my job and, you know, showing up. So it was about 2 years before I found out that I was a veteran, actually, and then it was probably another 40 before I heard the word DeSoto Patrol and found out what I was actually doing there at that point. So yeah, that's kind of, it's interesting how you don't always know what you're doing while you're doing it. But yeah, that was what it took.
In 5 years, the whole atmosphere in this country changed from 65 to 70.
Oh.
When it changed, a lot of things happened during that time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if I'd been on the next deployment of the Chevy, we'd have been on the gun line. And the gun line was really a sequence of destroyers that were firing shore bombardment up and down the coast. So I'd have been doing a lot of different things than I was. And that time I was fortunate in a lot of ways. We spent one one whole month in Hong Kong as what they call station ship, which meant we were in charge of the port for that period of time. And I was assigned at that point to the Kai Tak International Airport, and so that was my duty station for 30 days, which was pretty good stuff. I also had the opportunity to stand shore patrol in Wan Chai, which was a pretty tough place at one point or another too. So I was fortunate in what I got to see and what I learned from it. I was a kid, and it gave me a real perspective. That was my graduate school. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It turned, you know, with the Tonkin Gulf incident, you know, in 6 months, it turned totally around and got really tough. So,
Now, Bud, did you ever go to Zebra, Battle Station Zebra, and if so, why? Who would attack a destroyer?
I'm sorry, I didn't. Did you?
Battle Station Zebra.
No, not Zebra. We operated out of Yankee Station, which was a point in the Gulf that we used for reference. It was just a geographic point, but I didn't, not familiar with Zebra. Yeah.
Battle Station is just readiness level.
Oh, you mean, I'm sorry, a readiness level. No, we never fired our guns in anger or even manned our battle stations at that point. So.
Yeah, I was wondering why would be stupid enough to pick on destroyers.
Well, first of all, the Maddocks didn't really know what was happening any more than we did. I mean, and there are a lot of different stories about that and how it happened. I'm pretty convinced that the Maddocks was attacked. It was attacked by a bunch of swift boats, you know, these torpedo boats, and they handled it pretty well as far as I can tell. But of course, you know, this DeSoto Patrol we were running off their coast was, you know, kind of like somebody floating up and down the coast of the United States or whatever. In other words, we were pretty much into whatever their territorial waters seemed to be. So, but it was, I'm sure it was a surprise to the guys who were on the Maddocks, and they handled it But, any, sure.
The whole process of transferring one sailor from one ship to the other.
Yep.
You guys ever do that as a form of like punishment, or when somebody screwed up, make them get in the cage and go across?
I'm sorry, try that again.
The whole process, whenever you move one sailor from the ship to the other ship,
Yep.
while moving,
Right.
was that ever considered a form of punishment when somebody screwed up to make them go through all that?
No, but it was certainly, you wanted to make sure your shipmates loved you before you got in that position, I'll tell you that. So, any,
Can I share some stories from the same time period? Oh, go ahead. Basically, it's the same time period, and it'll interlock with what you were saying, because I was on the destroyer in 69 and 73. Only I was a boilerman. And so, other than being in the top, when you were saying, you were sitting there, these are funny stories, but they're not funny, but we're down there, I'm in the forward boiler room, and we're doing a full power run, so we got all 4 boilers lit off, which you never do. And these things are old. I mean, we're talking boilers that were built in the 40s, and so we're steaming along, and they got flank speed. We're going all out, and we're doing 32, and we can't keep up with the feed water. And so I'm in the forward boiler room, and I'm calling down an E9 chief that we call Bulldog, he's in the machinist mate. And so I radio, the old radio, Chief, you got to give me some more feed water, or we're going to shut. Don't you shut them boilers down, son. And so we're going along, and they got sight tubes in these boilers. And if the water runs out of the boilers, you die. I mean, you got about 3 minutes to go out of this thing. So there again, you're up in the top, and you're going along. And so pretty soon the water's dropping out of these sight tubes, and we've got a high and a middle and a low, so it's out of the middle one. I call down there again, I ring that's Chief, you got to give me some more feed water, or we're going to, don't you shut them boilers down, son. And so then we're going down, and we went completely out of the bottom. I mean, like I say, he wouldn't shut it down. He wouldn't call up there and tell him shut the ship down. So the final call, I got in there, I says, Chief, we're shutting the boilers down, and bam, we hit them, and one of the tubes had gone out in one of the forward boilers. Ooh. And so steam started coming out, and as soon as you shut the forward boiler room down, the back boiler room shuts down, because now you got safeties going off, and so we're dead in the water. I mean, and we're out there, we come out of them holes, and so the full power run is 32 knots. I mean, so that's some of the stuff in the boiler room that, when you do these, and when you show the fueling of the ships, we did that with fuel oil, and when they break away. And so we're fueling the ship. They have us out there in black oil. This is all black oil. And so we're side by side like you're seeing. The ships are going up and down. It's rough seas going on through. One breaks away. So where's that black oil go? But all over the ship, all over us. And then we're clean and go down through. North Atlantic, we got up there one time. They had pictures of our ship completely submerged. And the next picture, the screws were out of the water. I mean, so the tin cans. And, it's just funny things. Like I say, that's just part of it. I was in the forward boiler room, and brother got in. He come in 2 years later, and they said he was an electrician. He goes, oh, no, you're a boilerman like your brother. So he got in the back one where that back stack is, and I was in the front one. And so we served together on it. So, yeah, different times. I mean, in the old, same ships. I mean, there was days it was like glass. I never seen it because we were on 6 on, 6 off, but there was days the water was like glass out there. And there was days where, like I say, there was a handful of us, but that's just the other side of it, when you're down in the bottom, down in the boilers and stuff. Stories that just would...
Well, it's warmer down there anyway, but
it was 130 degrees, and people hear that, and they think no. And then in general quarters, you got to shut the hatch. And so we got to go down there and shut the hatches, and let's go to 150. We're standing in blowers going at 120, asbestos. Oh, gosh. It was just, but that was the boiler room. So, and unfortunately, I've had 2 brothers that have passed away within the last 2 years from lung cancer. From that's just another side of that, But it's just, destroyers were fun. They were fun in the way they were just a ship, a boat. We're out in the middle of the Atlantic. I was in the Atlantic. I didn't go to the Westpac and everything, but they were different. So anyway, just funny stories that tie into what you were saying.
Well, I got my commission at Newport and ended up in November, but I didn't ever want to be in the that part of the world. I mean, that was where the salt water froze on the lifelines, and that was.
And they told us we had 3 minutes if you go overboard, and you didn't dare walk on the side of the ship because just the inner pack had one patch on the inside. And then my brother was on a nuclear sub at the same time, and so where the Pueblo was, Tom said if he ever got caught, it would make the Pueblo look like a cakewalk. And it was just.
It was interesting.
It was
That-
very
yeah.
interesting, yeah. It was,
Well, and I've got some sea stories, and my book is available. There's some I've donated, and they can auction those off or sell them for, whatever you can put the money toward, and the good causes that you separate or support, and then they're also available on Amazon. So, sure.
So you came back in 1965, correct?
Right, yep.
Okay. How was your experience coming back to the United States, like a lot of other veterans that dealt with a lot of very difficult people? We'll just say that.
Well, as I say, I was pretty lucky. I got back and I got out before anybody knew much about what was going on in Vietnam. In '65, it was August of '64 when, they basically acknowledged that we even doing anything over there. And so it was one of those things where I didn't personally encounter any problems. I mean, I have friends. One friend got back. He was in Cameron Bay, but he was a lawyer and he was defending people. But he came back, landed in San Francisco, and he got a bunch of his buddies, and they had a party. So he took his uniform and he dumped it all into a trash can. Then when he came around the next morning and figured out he had to put it back on again because he needed that to travel back home. So anyhow, it's a shame because the guys who were there, a lot of them didn't want to be there in the first place, and it was the people that should have been brought to task were basically the politicians who took it and didn't understand. If you really want to get an understanding of what's going on, this book by John Paul Vann, The Bright Shining Lie, is really a terrific book about what was going on, and Vann was an interesting guy in his own right, but he understood what was going on as far as the type of conflict was there. I mean, it was guerrilla warfare. It was, and we knew it. I mean, there were people who knew what was going on there and how it was going to be fought, and the top people weren't paying attention. They were trying to, bomb them into the last decade or century or whatever, and that wasn't working. So yeah, but the guys who were coming back, those were the wrong people to be picketing and everything else. Bless their souls. Just getting out of that place was not much fun. But yeah, I just was sort of anonymous when I came back. People weren't thinking about it, and by the time they got to be thinking about it, they probably forgot I was in the Navy. So I was fighting the insurance back too a little bit.
at the same time, '69, when I first went in, I was 18 years old. You used to go, come out of high school. I'm standing on the corner down there outside the base, and buses go by, and they'd throw a drink at me, or they'd spit on me. I didn't know what was going on. I'm 18 years old. And at that time, you had to wear a uniform in and off the base. But then they got to where you couldn't wear a uniform. You had to go into a locker club just outside of base because it was unsafe to have any kind of a uniform. And so it used to be we could fly, when I first went in '69, you could fly standby with a uniform. And it got to be they said they want no uniform on planes no more. So you had to take your uniform, and I'm talking just Navy. I'm just not, every branch was going through that, But they literally would throw drinks on you, spit on you, and you're sitting as an 18-year-old kid saying, "What'd I do? I didn't do nothing. I joined trying, I just come out and joined the Navy. You go down through, and I didn't know one from another. I got walked home from school, and I joined the Navy because my dad was in the Navy, but all the recruiters were there. But everybody went through that. It was just terrible. I mean, just disgraceful. So, yeah.
Well, that uniform deal is sort of interesting. When we were in Japan, they would make us wear our uniform in Japan. For whatever reason, I tried to point out to them that, I was about 6 inches taller than the crowd, and putting me in a white uniform was just making me a better target than I would ordinarily be. So anyhow, it's, well, okay, sure.
Hi. Most of you don't know, Bud was in the insurance business. I worked in his agency for about 8 years, from '85 93 or so anyway. And I knew he'd been in the service, but some of the things he said, that only thing I knew about him, that he took liberty with our other friend anyway that was in his agency. And it was a good liberty, I think, anyway, if I remember. I'm not trying to tell you anymore, but another thing, the three of us were riding along down on Broadway near 43rd Street. This had to be around 1990, give or take, anyway. But up on the hill were some vets. They kind of looked like hippies, long hair and everything. And we kind of stopped. We knew they were military or ex. Asked them what they were doing. They said they were raising money for the Vietnam Memorial down there at 43rd and Broadway. Bud asked him that anyway, because he wasn't driving. He said, well, we'll give you money. So we all dug into our pockets. You probably don't remember this, Bud, but it was your idea. We donated to that wall that's still there, not being maintained by Kansas City, Missouri very well anyway. But I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. And our other buddy couldn't be here tonight because his wife went on in-house hospice today.
Oh, really?
And anyway, so thanks, Bud.
Well, thank you. Bless you all. Well, thank you.
Any other questions for Bud before we let him go? Well, Bud, you said that, you were insignificant, no one saw you, we see you, and we're grateful for you sharing your story with us tonight. Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Bud Mackey.
Thank you.
Again, he's got a few books over there in the corner that if you wish to buy, and he's definitely willing to sign them as well. So one of the